Good afternoon and welcome to the press conference for One Night in Miami. I'm Joanna Vicente, Executive Director and co-head of TIFF. I am delighted you could all join us today for this discussion of Regina King's feature directorial debut, One Night in Miami. Here we are, day 2. I hope everyone enjoyed day 1 of the festival and that you were able to watch some films from wherever you are. Day one saw the start of the industry conference, which began with the inspirational masterclass conversation with the iconic Viola Davis and Julius Tennant on how they use their production company to champion underrepresented voices. The day ended with an impactful panel discussion on narrative sovereignty and indigenous changemakers, co-presented with our friends at Imaginative. There were, of course, also a number of excellent films screening yesterday. Last night, we kicked things off with our opening night film, Spike Lee's wonderfully uplifting David Byrne's American Utopia. Cameron and I had the pleasure of introducing the film at both our drive-in venues, Pizza Skyline Drive-In at City View and RBC Lakeside Drive-In at Ontario Place. We didn't know a drive-in could be so fun. This year, instead of applause, there were car honks, flashing headlights, and such great energy from the audience. It was really a lovely night. We were so fortunate to have Toronto's own Jacqueline Acevedo, a percussionist in David Byrne's American Utopia. The reviews for the film have been so positive, along with other opening day films like Fireball, Shiva Baby, The Way I See It, and Night of the Kings. And now back to the press conference. I'd like to introduce your moderator for this afternoon, Kathleen Newman-Bregman. Kathleen is a Toronto-based writer and producer. She has produced many high-profile shows like The Social, E-Talk, Live at the Oscars, the iHeart Radio MMVAs, and Crave original series Cravings, The After Show. Her writing has appeared in Laney Gossip, Cosmo, Elle, Corduroy Magazine, and The Kid. She's currently the senior writer at Refinery 29 Canada and a frequent culture commentator. Thank you and enjoy.
Thank you so much, Joanna, for that introduction. Hello, everyone. And like Joanna said, thank you for joining us virtually for the first press conference of TIFF 2020 for One Night in Miami, directed by Regina King. It is the story of a night in February 1964 when real-life friends Cassius Clay, before he would become Muhammad Ali, Jim Brown, Sam Cooke, and Malcolm X gathered to celebrate Clay's win over Sonny Liston, which of course made him the heavyweight champion of the world. This film is a love letter to these four men, to their legacies, to their friendship, and to their humanity. I just want to say, believe the hype. One Night in Miami is deserving of all the praise that it has been getting in the past week, and I cannot wait to talk about it. I'm sure all of you listening who have seen the film are also very excited to ask questions, so drop them in the chat box to the left of your screen. We will get to them at the end of this conversation. All right, I am so honored to be joined by first-time feature film director, longtime legend, Regina King. Oh. Hi, hello, Regina. All right, next up, it's playwright and screenwriter Kemp Powers.
Hey, how's it going?
Hi, I'm just pausing for applause here. I'm just assuming that everyone is applauding to their computer screens. All right, and next it's the four men who deliver outstanding performances that I think that we will be talking about for a long time. First up, it's Eli Goree, who plays Cassius Clay. Hello, Eli.
Hey,
then we've got Leslie Odom Jr., who plays Sam Cooke.
Kingsley.
Oh, everybody. That's Aldis.
That's all the time.
That's Aldis Hodge, Jim Brown, and we've got Kingsley Ben-Adir, who plays Malcolm X. We do not have Leslie Odom Jr. yet, but I'm sure he is joining us soon. This is, I'm sure, everyone, not what you expected your TIFF premiere was going to look like. But we're making it work. We're making it work. Leslie's going to get in here soon, but I'll start it anyway. First, Aldis stole my lines backstage, but congratulations to all of you on the early reviews because they are so deserving. There he is, Leslie Odom Jr. Thank you for joining us. Congratulations on the early reviews. They're very deserved, and you guys should be basking in the glow of that right now. Congrats. Okay, I'm going to start with Regina. As I mentioned, and as we all know, you're already a prolific actor, an accomplished director in television. I can imagine that, you stay booked and busy. So I can imagine there were a lot of projects you could take on. So talk about why this project and this script was one that you wanted to make your directorial debut and how it all came together.
It was on the page. Kemp's script just was, when I read it, I couldn't believe that this was even a play because it didn't feel like a play when I was reading it. But more importantly, I had never seen conversations like this happen before on the screen, small screen or big screen. And I felt like I was, while it was through the voices of these legendary men, I felt like I was listening to conversation from just Black men speaking about the Black man's experience. And I wanted in on that. So that coupled with, I had just signed on with a new lit agent, and we had met and we had been talking about the things that I was interested in doing as a feature director, making that move eventually into a feature world. And I said I wanted to do a film that was like a love story with a historical backdrop. And then he brings me One Night in Miami. And I mean, talk about asking for something and then it coming back just even bigger than you could imagine. So I put on my presentation hat because I had to get the job, and met the producers and let them know the story that I wanted to tell. And thank goodness Kemp and the rest of the team wanted to have me on board.
I love that you called it a love story because it really is. Maybe not in the traditional sense, but it is absolutely that. And Kemp, there are so many things I loved about this story, but it seems like, every day we are out here fighting for our humanity and pleading for people to see that humanity. And this night in Miami with these four friends and legends, it really is about, that on display. And it gets to the heart and soul of these people that I think we all thought we knew potentially. And so can you please talk about how you imagined this night and how you got to kind of the heart of each of these figures?
Well, yeah, I mean, I think you said it. The key word here is his humanity. Humanity, friendship, love between friends who happen to be Black men, and how rarely you see that kind of thing executed. It was based on a very real night, but the conversation that these guys were having that I wanted them to have, it's honestly a conversation that me and my buddies had freshman year in the dormitory at Howard. It's a conversation being had right now in dormitories at Howard and Hampton and more. You have dreams. You want to have success as a Black man. But when you get to that point, when you have it, it always comes with an asterisk. And it's questions of like, how much do I have to compromise of myself to succeed in this world that at times can be very hostile towards me? So all I really did was, I think, kind of like reverse engineer the conversation going on inside all of our heads. I mean, I don't want to speak for any of the guys, but these are some handsome, talented young men you're seeing, successful young men you're seeing, and I have no doubt that before they were exposed to this story, these were things that were rolling around in each of their heads as well. And I just wanted to put that on display. I just wanted to put that on display and show that, like, you know, it's showing us indestructible is one thing, but I wanted to show men that we see as iconic and indestructible in moments of vulnerability, and do it in a way that that vulnerability isn't a bad thing at all.
Absolutely. Well, you succeeded. And I'm going to get to those conversations and kind of what each of you were talking about. But I want to first talk about these characters. And, you know, a film like this does not work without extraordinary performances. And, you know, it would be really easy to turn them into impersonations because, you know, some of these men, we know their mannerisms. So I want to go to you, Eli, because, and I also want to say, Eli is a Canadian, you're from Halifax, but you've been saying that TIFF is like coming home. So welcome home, Eli.
Thank you so much. It feels really good to do this right now. This is like, TIFF is like my stomping grounds. I'm a CFC alumni, like always been around TIFF. So it's really cool. It's really exciting.
Yeah, it's incredible. We're excited to have you. So yeah, Cassius Clay, I mean, Muhammad Ali, we know how he moves. We know the musicality of his voice. We know how he says the word pretty. And you were able to embody that, yeah, without it becoming this like caricature. So talk to me about capturing the essence of him.
I think I tapped into a few things that I felt resonated. The first thing is we're both men of faith. And so that I understood, and I knew that that was the core of what his role in the film was about. And so I knew, like, for me as a Christian, my faith is the core of who I am. And so that was the thing that was a through line for me whenever I was trying to figure out where I ground him at. It was always about the both men of faith. That was the first place as an actor. And then I had to find the places where we didn't resonate. And that is that he is from the deep-rooted South in America, in Louisville, Kentucky. And so I went and I actually found an amazing dialect coach who ended up being the dialect coach for the film. Thank Regina for that. Trey Cotton. And he's, you know, one of the few young Black Southern dialect coaches that is extremely well trained. And I said to him, I said, I don't want to put the Ali-isms and the rhythm of his voice and the cadence over top of Eli, because that's what I've seen in other performances, and then it just becomes like an SNL thing. You know, I wanted to go to the root of who he was. So what we first did was, when we were prepping the script, we didn't do any Ali voice. Like, we got rid of all that, and we just worked on sounding like an authentic African American from Louisville, Kentucky. And then once we were able to do that, then over top of that, I could layer in his personality. So I think those two things, the combination of understanding the faith and then growing to understand. And I mean, you know, I know we only have a short time, but there's so much that goes into what it is to be Black and from the South. And in that time, especially, but even today, of course, we all see, like, everything about your life influences how you talk. Like Trey would talk about the heat. And, you know, so your jaw is just loose, and you're talking like this because it's hot, and you don't got a lot of energy.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's like so many things about the environment come into how a person speaks. The way I speak to someone I respect is different than the way I speak to someone I don't respect. The way I speak to a white person is different than how I speak to a Black person, or how I speak to my grandmother. So there's so many aspects. It's not as simple as a flat A or a flat I, or, you know, just like that kind of stuff. So there was a lot of time. We don't really have all the time to go into it, but those were kind of two pillars that, first and foremost, the faith, and then second, you know, just really trying to get in touch with who he was at the roots, and then grow from it.
Yeah, Kingsley, similar question to you in crafting Malcolm X and his physicality and his voice. And I read that you said you had never thought about a human being that consistently ever in your life. So talk about getting into his head, and especially at this time when, you know, it's a lot of anxiety and exhaustion, it feels like, at this time in his life.
In him, yeah, I feel like because we didn't have a huge amount of time, it was about spending time wisely and doing as much reading as possible. And most of the time I was just watching a lot. I picked like 2 or 3 interviews and I just watched them all day, every day. And I just had him in my ear, you know. I don't know when he wasn't in my ear. Like I just sort of just spent time with him, looking at him, thinking about him, you know, where he was operating from at that time. I think that he was under a lot of pressure, to say the least. Yeah, deep prep, and lots of repetition, you know, and then trusting. I think that, like, I think I have a voice in me as an actor, I think, that knows when to put into like a cliche or like a caricature that says, stop doing that, you idiot. So, like, that's constantly going, and you just a lot of repetition of the lines. And, you know, we do like mantras on set and just a lot of vocal exercises on set. You know, it was one of those, like, there was no messing around. Like, we went for it. And we had Regina to guide us. Like, we keep talking about the words and like Kemp's writing and who these men were, but like so much of this job as well was like, damn, what did we directed by Regina King? That's kind of nuts. Like, sort of settling in now, and because she's such an exquisite actor, like, you just like the trust that gives you, like, as a performer, to like just let go and know that even if you go too far, you're going to be looked after. You know, the right coverage is only going to be used. Like, you can't say that all the time, and it's like it just gave a sense of relaxation, and there was just room to play, you know, and figure it out together and discover and not be scared to make mistakes. So
I can imagine there's a lot of pressure that also comes with taking on these characters. And so pressure, I gotta go to Leslie, because you are singing some of the most some of the most iconic songs ever, Sam Cooke songs. And as a musician, talk about just, I mean, it sounds like there was a lot of trust on set, which is great, but just talk about the weight of that.
It never went away. There was I realized when they called, because we finished shooting in New Orleans, we had 2 days left to shoot in LA that we were supposed to get right away, and then COVID. So I had to wait a few months to get those final 2 days. And when they called, when they said that's a wrap on Leslie Odom Jr., I felt the tension in my belly melt away. And I realized I'd been tense since I got this job. I've been holding tension in my body since they told me I was going to be playing Sam Cooke, because you know, you talk about, you know, Sam Cooke is the bar. He is the bar for all modern male singing, black men. You know, if you were singing soul, R&B, if you were crooning, I mean, Sam really covered the gamut. And so Sam, you know, influenced all my other heroes too. You know what I mean? It's like he's baked into everybody. So when I watch the film, and I'm no fan of myself, you know, I do not sit back and ooh, look at that Leslie Odom Jr. performance at all. But I can, when I see the most I can say for myself, and I'm grateful to Kemp and Regina and my scene partners, my 3 brothers, is like I have grace for myself in the places that I do fall short, because I can see how hard we were working, and I can see how close we brought these guys. We really brought them close and tried to commune with them and just do our best. So there are some magic moments where I got lost in Sam a little bit, and it was he taught me so much. For Sam too, I got to build so much. You know, Eli talked about preparation, and Kingsley talked about preparation. Trey, the dialect coach, was tremendously helpful to me as well. And our way into Sam was through his music. There's so much music on Sam, and so that was the guide to his psychology, but also to the speaking voice as well.
Absolutely. Aldis, you're very restrained and calm as Jim in this role, and I feel like you do the most with the least amount of dialogue. And yeah, I mean, you've taken on playing a real person before with Brian Banks, also a football player. I don't know what that is, that you just want to play football all the time.
They keep coming back at me.
But I mean, you can speak a little bit to the performance as well, but I want to skip ahead because we're running low on time. Just about the messages and some of these big conversations in the film about what it means to be a successful Black man and to give back to your community and what that responsibility is. And so everything that's going on now, the racial reckoning, the pandemic, the Black Lives Matter movement, how does all of those messages, the significance of them in this backdrop? Can you speak to that?
Sure. As far as those, well, let's take in the situation as it is. As a Black man, I feel like where we are culturally is nothing new. You know, I grew up knowing this. I was born in the South. I was raised in, in the East Coast as a kid, but I was raised around the KKK. I was raised around a lot of this. There's a normalcy to the static chaos of our environment today. The chaos just has a bit more of a platform. It's more exposed. There are people who have denied it for a long time who can no longer deny it. They can deny our voices and our pleas and what we're asking for, but because of the exposure, they can no longer deny it. So now the conversation that we've been having for so long and that we're continuing to have has been exemplified to an extent where you cannot ignore it. When it comes to this particular film, I believe it is, yes, it is a love letter. It is a conversation, this conversation that we're having that speaks so much to what we're going through, which is why I love it so much, because I felt like this film was a grand opportunity to execute effective art. So, you know, to Kemp, brother, your words, thank you. To Regina for putting us together, thank you. I think that we have an opportunity to really relay the message to those who really don't understand it. We have an opportunity to teach those who are trying to have the conversation how to have the conversation, how to continue to debate positively, to continue aiming for progress. These four men, you know, most people would probably look at them and say, you know, you're a movie star, you're a singer, you're this, you're that, and you're living the life, but they are still not removed from the effects of what's going on to their culture within their country. They are still Black in this world. They are still Black in America. And I feel like what we're seeing is them understanding the nature of their presence, the nature of their efficacy, and they're having a conversation to figure out how can we use this to really benefit our people? How can we use this to really help in the struggle? And how do we challenge our responsibility? I think that's what this conversation really is I feel a calling to do something. I'm doing this, you're doing this, you're doing this. How can we bring it together to do the best thing possible? So for those who feel called to do something, there's a reason. You got work to do. We all got work to do. Mm-hmm. We see an example of four men who challenged that calling and wanted to answer it in the best way possible. And we see what Malcolm did. We see what Sam did. And all of the effects of what they created still resonate so loudly today, to the point where we're able to make this beautiful art with this film. We understand what Cassius did. We see that, you know, Jim Brown started the Black Economic Union back in '68. And we understand the power and still are having a conversation about the power of Black economic wealth. So this conversation is still going on today, and I'm happy to be a part of a project, as I know we all are, that speaks to what it is we're going through in a way that's so beautifully articulated to where We can see it, we can understand it, and we also can have clarity as far as gaining a direction how to keep moving forward with that conversation within our community and how we talk to other people about it.
Yeah.
Because it's a problem that still needs to get fixed.
Yeah, that's why I don't love calling a moment, right? Because, you know, we've been here, we're going to be here.
Yeah.
Regina, you've talked about how you were going to push the premiere back because of COVID-19, and then you felt like it was urgent to get it out right now. Can you speak more to that?
Well, we were gonna push it back because we're short 2 scenes. And actually it was 3 scenes. And we because the things that are being discussed in the film are just as relevant now as they were 60 years ago. So, and that was the reason for Kemp writing, for us doing it. But then we knew that we did not know what the filmmaking protocols were going to be. Well, a lot of us had already gone on to other projects, and all of our projects had been canceled because of COVID. So I luckily was able to be editing while we were waiting to see what the climate of the world was going to be. And then, you know, George Floyd happened, and then Breonna Taylor happened. Well, first Ahmaud Arbery happened, and then George Floyd, and then Breonna Taylor. And then, you know, people exploded. We were now in this powder keg moment. And Kemp and Keith and Jess and Jody, producers on the film, we all talked and were like, we've got to figure out a way to get this out now. And then those scenes that we had to do, Leslie and Eli were in those scenes. So I called Eli first and I said, you know, because you don't know what people's, you know, temperature is going to be with a pandemic going on. You know, how are they going to feel about doing this now? And Eli's first, and he said, I am so happy you called me. Yes, I will. If I have to start quarantining now. and so I said, okay, well, I said, that's great to hear. I'm going to call Leslie to see how he feels about it. And Leslie was the same way. He was like, oh, just let me know, you know. And so just to hear the two of them be on the same page as well, that's all we needed to know to do what we needed to do to make sure we could keep them safe and get this done. And we ended up with 60 crew members tested negative for COVID. We were able to make it happen because that many people believe that this needs to be out now.
I'm so glad you did. So thank you all for doing that and pushing through and getting this out. I want to move on to the questions. There's a lot of people waiting to ask you all some questions. So this first one is from Tracy Melchor at eTalk. Hi, Tracy. She says, good afternoon. This is for Regina. Congratulations. What an achievement. And she says, what does it mean for you to be a trailblazer? And how you are taking this all in compared to your last trip to TIFF with If Beale Street Could Talk, of course, which you went on to do all right with that, with that role.
Well, this is really interesting times. You know, we would normally be there, and TIFF is my favorite film festival. I mean, we're here now, but we're here virtually. It's bittersweet because it was also, I'm going to try to turn it down because I'm getting a little feedback. I'm sorry. It's bittersweet because we can't actually be there in arms together, because this would have been our North American debut and our opportunity to, you know, share this on our soil. And and it's not happening, but there's a bit of me that feels a little, sad about that. And then it's especially a little disappointed for Eli, because this is his home as well, and not getting an opportunity for him to get that extra love from his home, where he's from. So I am really trying to focus on just the accomplishment, what we've all achieved, and taking that in as people are starting to see it and starting to reach out and respond with the response that's even, but for some, I think, I can't speak for everyone, but we hope that it would be received well. We didn't have any screenings, so we don't know how it plays. Nobody knows how it plays in an audience. None of us do. So we're trusting that the feedback that we're getting when audiences are seeing it, we're just kind of living vicariously through the audience. So TIFF are some of the lucky few first audiences to get to see it as an actual audience.
Yeah, and I think part of Tracy's question there was you being a trailblazer, and she mentioned that you were the first Black female director to be accepted into Venice. And, you know, if this goes on to the Oscars, you'll be making history there as well. And I've heard you talk about the pressure of wanting this to do well, of wanting it to be well received so that you can open doors for people behind you. So just to answer the trailblazer part of that question, are you thinking about the responsibility that comes with being the first when it comes to this film?
Yes. It's interesting. I'm trying to figure out where to put the emotions, you know, because the fact that, you know, in 2020 that this is a first, you know, in a festival that's been happening for 80 years, and I can think of so many films directed by Black women filmmakers that I just assumed were at Venice. I didn't even realize that they were. So it is, I understand the responsibility. There's disappointment that comes along with it because of what I just said. But I do recognize that there's a lot of pressure that goes on first for anyone, and that the second, third, fourth, fifth, so on, so often is predicated on how the first performed. So luckily, I have this group of 5 that propelled me to this first.
Right. Yeah. I don't think you have to worry about the reviews. At least that's that part. You know, you can shake that off a bit because we know that people are loving it, and because it's great. This was from Russell. This is for the cast. Is there one piece of dialogue or one moment in the film which is the most vitally important for today? Kingsley, I'm going to go to you because I feel like you've got a lot of them in this film.
Black people being murdered on the streets every day.
Yeah. Simple.
It's kind of like it begins and ends there. You know, like you don't really even need to. We're the fact that is a fact, and a fact that like literally it's happened less than a week ago. You know, and in the time of shooting this film to this moment right now, it's a long list, and it's heartbreaking.
Yeah, absolutely. And how much, I'll go to Leslie here. How much of those conversations that were happening in the dialogue did you guys then take off camera and continue them?
Oh, I mean, you know, I have to say, well, our work was considerable in front of the camera. So it's like, you know, we were kind of only working or talking about working on this, but what we got to bring is our life experience. You know, what Kemp was putting on screen is, I mean, this is a conversation. What I recognized very clearly in the script was that, you know, what felt a little dangerous and felt exciting was this was a private conversation that we were going to have in public. When my white manager was reading it, he was like, you know, I've never been a party to a conversation like this. I felt a little like, should I be hearing this? You know? And so that was exciting that Kemp wanted to really lift that fourth wall, you know, knock out that fourth wall and let us peek in, and Regina made it possible. So yeah, while we were shooting, we were pretty much just talking about this thing, but we knew what it was.
Yeah, and I mean, that's what resonated so much with me as well. I think Malcolm Kingsley ends up saying it, that, you know, the idea of pandering to a white audience, and there is no point in this, Kemp, where you did that, because these are conversations that we are all having. Okay, I want to go back to the questions. This is from John for Aldis. Did Jim Brown himself contribute much to the film, and did you talk to him personally? Oh, we cannot hear Aldis anymore.
Sorry, hello?
That's okay, hi.
I had myself on mute so you wouldn't get the feedback. No, I didn't get the chance to speak to Mr. Brown personally upon preparing for this film and while shooting this film. However, as far as, you know, him contributing much, the man contributed his life experience. So I don't have anything to say without what he has done, you know. So yes, he absolutely contributed to everything that I put into this film, even if I didn't speak to him personally, you know. And for that I thank him. You know, I actually, this whole experience, we were able to really dive in, and I found myself doing intimate research on all four of these men. And I encourage everyone, especially, you know, after watching this film, to go do that research, not on the things that you know publicly, but, you know, the real conversations that when they were standing for things, when they were in private rooms, those are where you get to really learn who these human beings are and were. And it's a great wealth of knowledge. It's not to be missed. So I would say take a deep dive.
Absolutely. Kingsley and Eli, you have both talked about the deep dive that you have done. And, you know, I want to talk about casting a bit, because I'm sure you all knew when you were going to start promoting this film that you would get these questions, that two of these men are not American and they're playing big American figures. So Regina and Kingsley, you have both talked about this. Talk about the conversations that were happening behind the scenes about having non-American actors playing these two big historical Black American figures.
Well, I mean, we didn't let it consume most of the conversation. And I don't really think I even had the conversation much as much as I did with Kingsley, with Eli. I think we might have only touched on it a little bit. And Kingsley and I just had one conversation, but it was in the midst of a broader conversation of getting to know him, getting to know each other. You know, it was, I just needed to know that I had a great actor and someone that understood the magnitude of who he was going to be playing. And Kingsley understood that in spades. And it was no different from that point with Kingsley, Leslie, Eli, or Aldis. They were all, from me as actors, expected to do the same, to know that we were not doing any impersonations. You are portraying iconic human beings from a space that no one's ever seen them before. So what does that look like? And in all of my because I've had conversations with them individually, separate from each other, and we've had some deep conversations on set together as we were figuring this out. And what was most important for me is that their expectations for the telling of this story matched mine, because that was the only way, in the amount of time that we had to do this, that was the only way we were going to get it done, is that we all were in agreement of what story we were going to tell, and the importance of telling that story, and the importance of getting, like, infusing your heart, mind, and soul into these men. You know, that's a huge, everybody knows what these men look like. You know, there are other performances of real life people that have been done, but a lot of times the audience doesn't know what that person looks like, or doesn't know much about them. Everybody thinks they know everything there is to know about these four men, and that could be a daunting task. You know, it could be so difficult to step into, and except for Leslie, Kingsley, Eli, and Aldis, you know, took it on like they knew that it was that they had to. A little more, but once he was convinced, he got it, and yeah, knew that there was no other person but him.
And as soon as you watch these performances, I think that any other conversation, it's like these were the men for the role. Absolutely. This is a question from Adam Dietrich. He asks, what part of the characters have continued to live with the guys? So I'm going to go to Eli here.
That's a good question. You know, I'll kind of answer that like a little bit differently. I feel that I carry a lot from the experience of this whole entire process, both playing Cassius, but also from being around these guys. I get a little emotional, and I try not like being like fake TV emotional, but I just really got so much out of this. And, you know, from all this, you know, his professionalism and being like, bro, you're in the wrong eye line. Like, you got to move. You're in the wrong eye line. You're not in the right spot. Because he knows, because he's done so many films, and he just knows. And, you know, and when I first came in, I was kind of like, yo, he's trying to sun me. You know what I mean? But after a while, I was like, I had to humble myself and realize that, like, Regina, you know what I mean? She's been on Ray. She's been on Boys in the Hood. She's been on Friday. Like, all these epic films that just, like, paint our lives. You know, all of us know where we were the first time we saw all those films. You know, and so it's like Kingsley said, trusting that and the beauty that comes with being able to trust. But if she says, like, no, that's not real, I want you to really think about what you're feeling right now and tap into that. And like, and trust that she sees on screen that you can go to another place. And Kingsley, like, you know, people always talk about, like, you know, everyone does the same thing to be a good actor, right? Everyone does repetition. Everyone reads their lines. Everyone watches the guys that they're going to play. And it's so we're all doing the same stuff, just like we're all doing the same, like, everyone does the same thing with Steph Curry when they want to be a good basketball player. We all practice. It's the depth and the intensity. Like, he can tell you, you know, I did a lot of repetition, and you can hear that and think one thing, but if you were watching him and if you saw the intensity that he brought to his preparation for this character, we were all blown away on set as we watched him, because it was a different level of focus, and it was like life and death for him that he really captured this man, you know. And then with Leslie, I can just one example that I love. I tell everybody in my own life, so I'll tell you. We were in a scene where I'm sitting on a bed, and they play a song of Sam Cooke's. It's just a love song, and we're all listening to it. And Regina yells "cut," and I say to Leslie, he's sitting across from me in the scene, I say, "Man, that's Sam Cooke. He had some voice, right?" And he says, "Yeah, man. You know, I'm trying to get it." And I'm like, "What are you talking about?" And he's like, "Well, that was me." I said, "That was Sam." I said, "No, bro, that was me." Stop messing with me, bro. That was Sam Cooke. He always tells me. We did about 6 takes of that scene. Every time I'm trying to listen, because I get up in the scene and I have a little moment. Every time I'm trying to listen to hear Leslie, and I couldn't hear him. I literally was convinced it was Sam Cooke. That's how, like, the kind of talent he had. So I took a lot from this. It was like a real education, and the words, all that stuff. But it was just a beautiful experience. I grew so much as a person. So I'll take it all with.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to spoil what the big song is. There's the kind of finale, but yeah, you got it. You got it. Okay, we've got about 10 seconds left, so I'm just gonna get our last question in here. This is from Juan Carlos Garcia from Reforma newspaper. Regina, what was the hardest scene to shoot? And Kemp, I think you can weigh in here on just like the hardest scene to translate from stage to screen.
Well, I don't know if it was necessarily hard, but there's a scene in the beginning. Well, there's 2 scenes in particular. One is a very quiet moment between Malcolm and Jim Brown, where it's right after. Well, I don't want to ruin the. I'm spoiler alert. It's a quiet moment between Malcolm and Jim Brown, where Malcolm has kind of been on the attack for an extended period of time, and Jim kind of gives him a bit of a comeuppance. He kind of like pulls him back and like reads him in a very subtle way. And honestly, that was a scene that in the play came across as more comedic. And I love what Regina did in getting to the heart and drama of that moment in a film in a way that I didn't even see it in the play. The other was, it's actually another Jim scene with him and Mr. Carlton at the beginning of the film. And in the play, that's exposition. That's a story that Jim is telling the guys about something that happened to him. And for the play, I mean, for the movie, we decided, you know, let's go ahead and make that a moment and lead up to him. And the first time I saw it in dailies, it like really, really affected me, because it's I think that is something that on a personal level I really connected to. This idea, you hear people say things like, what do you got to complain about? You got money. You should just be happy that, you know, you have this thing, you have success, you have that. And they don't understand sometimes the banality, how banal hate and racism can be, and how the banal nature of it, where it's not a dun 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 and you know there's a burning cross. It's so banal that the person who's delivering it doesn't even notice, and how that can chip away at your soul, and it can chip away over years, and in the case of Black Americans, it can chip away over generations, to the point that it feels like it's in our DNA. I mean, that to me is a Black American experience. I mean, that shit is like in our DNA. Things that we don't even know why we're reacting to them. And it's because of moments like that times a billion. And so that just seeing this story that Jim told in the play actually executed as a scene in a film, I was a bit kind of verklempt. I was a bit taken aback, because I didn't realize how much more I would feel that moment seeing it play out.
Kingsley, I'm going to give you the last word. There are so many things I'm still thinking about after this film, and I'm sure we will continue to be talking about. What do you hope people take away from this film?
You know, I hope that they entertained and enlightened, and I hope that what we've put together, you know, holds their attention and they listen to the words that are being spoken. It's just such a unique one-off opportunity to get to explore, I say these men, but for me, Malcolm, in such a unique position of vulnerability, in a way that we haven't seen him before, in a way that really taps into a very specific side of his humanity that I was just blown away by. The more I dug and the more I dug and the more I understood the specifics of what was going on for him at this time, in terms of the pressure that he was under, in terms of like they were trying to take his house back off him, his children weren't safe, like the FBI were up his ass. Like, I mean, we're talking like nervous breakdown territory. And he said that he felt weak and he felt hollow, and no one understands the torments that I was going through at that time. That's what he said. And Dick Gregory, a good friend of his, described him as a sweet and bashful man. And no one knew that, because the lacerating demagogue that we have been bombarded with by the media has tricked us all into thinking that he was this thing that he was in some ways, but there was so much more to Malcolm. And like, I'm just so glad that I got an opportunity to like tune into another side. There's another really important side that I think the world needs to understand about Malcolm. This man was a comedian. He was a stand-up comedian. I mean, I've never witnessed anyone like when he's in the not the temple, but he's speaking to the black community in LA at one point, and when he's in Harlem, if you watch the videos of him, you know, speaking to the people in Harlem, like they're in hysterics. Like he's actually one of the funniest people I've ever had the pleasure of listening to. And the same with Ali. Like, you know, these men, Huey P, Nelson Mandela, Ali, you know, Malcolm. These were the men that I first, you know, understood about as my people who I looked up to. You know, when I first started reading and when I first started, you know, understanding that I was black and that, you know, the world didn't necessarily see me the same way as it did everyone else. Nelson Mandela was the first person I read. Then it was Ali, you know, and Malcolm and Huey, like Revolutionary Suicide. I mean, I lived with that book, you know. I'm sort of, but I just hope that people, you know, I'm excited for people to get to see these men in a room just kicking it, you know, in true friendship and in true love, and take from it what you will. But like, I'm just grateful for the opportunity to, you know, got to have been a part of that.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I'm so excited as well for everyone to see all of your outstanding, I keep saying that word, but truly incredible career-defining performances. Congratulations to all four of you, and thank you for your work. Regina and Kemp, thank you for this film. I do believe it is urgent, and the timing it's timely and timeless. So thank you all so much for your work, and congratulations on the film.
Thank you.
My pleasure.
Thank
Thanks
you.
for having us.